Hello and welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. I'm here with the first ever the time when I was recording too much, as opposed to not accidentally not recording the show. But we are here after a break and preceding another break as I travel between events frequently. We're back with Indiepocalypse Radio. Indiepocalypse Radio, of course, being your the halfway between a interview show and just a post-con hang. I'm Andrew, the host of Indiepocalypse Radio and the editor, etc., all that stuff for Indiepocalypse. I have to update a new cover. There's a new one coming out. You would think I would prepare some of this stuff at some point before the show starts, but I am steadfast that it's a Saturday and I do not work on a Saturday in the slightest. But we are here with our first guest, who you may know from. We've got like issue 58 just came out. We've got guests from 57, 56, and 55. But I'm going out of descending order with a guest from issue 56 of Indiepocalypse with Witcher Bunny 444. It's Moo Poke. Moo Poke, how are you doing today?
Puck. I'm doing wonderfully. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm back. The nice part about events is that you get to meet people in person. The bad part is when you have 3 hours of downtime and you don't do anything, and you sort of don't have that socializing. So I'm glad to be back and doing the show.
Yeah.
But important question off the top that I often need to ask just for my own marketing is, how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I think I saw it on the itch front page at some point.
That's I am considering, I'm increasingly close to retiring the question because that keeps being the answer. So I'm going, well, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I saw it once 3 years ago or something. Mm-hmm. But speaking of seeing it, and so if people are unfamiliar, how would you describe Winter Bunny 444?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Right. Yes.
That keeps being my answer. I'm sorry.
No. It's such a often have people on here and ask, quickly give me your elevator pitch for your personal art game, which is not usually a question that comes up, or they're not things that lend themselves to like a 30-second elevator pitch,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I would call it the fever dream of a very sad trans girl, I guess.
Yes, so the Indiepocalypse bread and butter. But yeah, no, that is also, I guess, similar to like, it's always difficult to. I run into this problem, when I was just at an event last week. Is I often run into like, well, how do I describe these games, to people who are like, oh, what kind of game is this? Or even more cursed, like, what's the point of this game?
Mm-hmm.
And I often, do not know how to answer a question like that, or it's more, it's the experiential or the classic, the game explains itself, you just have to play it. And these sorts of things are tricky to have to like sort of advertise,
Yeah, especially with the question of like, what is the point of this game?
Right.
Because like, I don't know how to explain to someone that it's just like for whoever wants to hear all my droolings, pretty much.
Right, and that's a lot of like what art is for, a lot of people. It's if you want to distinguish things, what is art and what is not, which I think is a sort of pointless thing. in a lot of ways, but I often think of it most as like something somebody needs to say, if that make like in this in the simplest terms, you know,
Yeah, definitely.
like you had these, ideas that you needed to get out of your head, and art becomes like a digestible version of that for somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like
like that definition.
like if you try to explain everything you were trying to say with this game to somebody, you may not like convey all the ideas in the same way the game would.
Hmm. True.
And I think that's the strength of it. So, how did you get into like what made you decide to get into game development?
Um, I hate to say this again, but I'm not sure. But I
Yeah,
will say,
no, perfectly fine.
uh, yeah, I started in Unity making like obviously really bad games.
Right. Also, I've
When
yes.
I was 13.
I don't think
Yeah.
anyone has
Um,
ever. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. What were you gonna say?
I don't think anyone has like opened up Unity and made their opus immediately. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah.
it's just
Um,
whether or not you feel like you post, Square Dodger 7 constantly to itch, and you go, I think I can keep that to myself.
mhm. um, but yeah, I don't know. I think the more I've like tried to experiment with other mediums, I guess just like the process of like making that experience that can sort of be experienced in a unique way by
Yeah.
every person. I guess that applies to everything.
Right.
Um,
It's like,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
the question of at what point do the like games, it's the most straightforward version of our interaction
Hmm.
meets us, but or our interaction informs us, but we all interact with every form of art in some way or another.
Hmm.
you know my classic off reference, like Linda Barrett comic, where the person doesn't understand art and then uh, holds the person up to look at it and you go, oh yeah, art.
Hmm.
um but yeah, that is like a um so I assume, like, you have music as well, which I'm realizing I mentioned, I should have got that for the show itself, since I play stuff during the break, but I forgot. um, but you've dabbled in a lot of different mediums. uh,
Um, yeah.
and is it all just sort of how do I say it? Different like experimentations, or what, so when you how am I trying to convey this idea of so you don't have like, oh, I am a game developer. You're more just like, you're like, oh, I'm an artist. And I game development maybe is perhaps games is like the larger medium that I'm approaching it through, but like in the much way many independent artists are, you sort of multidisciplinary and just sort of feeling things out.
Um, yeah, definitely. I think that's how I would put it. Um, yeah, I think using music as an example, there's definitely like a much different way of conveying things.
Yeah.
Even though I think like the same topics could be talked about with both music and a game.
Right, but you can, you can take different approaches to it. Just the labels themselves on your Bandcamp page of industrial harsh noise are very different from the your game, but can these
Mhm.
things
Yeah,
can convey the same ideas through different approaches?
yeah, for sure.
Because often,
Um,
sorry, go ahead.
oh yeah, I was just gonna say, not that I should get too much into it because I doubt that would be appropriate right now, but Yeah, I have been like thinking of experimenting recently with like themes in games that I have already explored, like
Yeah,
on my first album and stuff.
right. Because it's yeah. So it's as in like your music is informing your games, informs your music, and not that they're separate things, that they are uh, just sort of like different parts of making art and expressing yourself.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, there is because there is it is like the weirdness of coming into you know game development, and like it feels like a weird uh time to get into development for everybody, because
Mhm.
it feels like the sort of like freeware hobbyist phase is like thriving in a lot of ways, but there's feels like increasingly less places to like for it to get noticed, other than among other freeware hobbyist artists.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So there's it feels as if there is a of like a new generation of game development is kind of like brewing in this moment.
Yeah, pretty much.
But now do you now do you play many games? This is often the question like of a
Mhm.
game developer is like, because sometimes the answer is no, not really, or
Um, yeah, it's been hard for me to like actually play games for a while, and
right.
also to like make them as well, but I'm getting over that.
Yes, yeah,
Um, but yeah, I'm getting better at it. I've been trying to like force myself pretty much like engage better with like art that it
yeah,
like is like sort of like similar to mine, I guess, or just like with the work of other indie developers. Because yeah, I definitely don't do that enough.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
Sorry, it can be a
and
hard thing sometimes to like um what's the word, it's sort of sometimes like it's more intense a lot of times, whether it's like in a more intense experience or not, is like, oh, I am sitting and playing a thing that often is alone, that nobody else is usually talking about,
yeah,
which kind of makes it harder often for people to be like, oh yeah, I want to try. It's much easier to, uh, you know, uh, easier to feel included. If you're like, oh, I am playing the thing that people are playing, so I can talk about it or vicariously talk about it by listening to watching other people talk about it.
right, yeah,
Within an issue, like, and also like, where do you start? Like, how would you, right? Where do you
hmm yeah,
do you look through a jam, or do you look through like your own related, like if you have a like a related section sometimes, and go, oh, what's in there with me, what do people who download my thing also like,
yeah. And also like I've gotten to do this a lot through Indiepocalypse actually, but becoming friends with other developers is really great
yes,
because then like it's not like the art. It's not that the game doesn't like stand well enough on its own, of course.
yeah,
It kind of like gives more of that like push to really engage with the thing they made and be like, well, the thing you made is really cool.
yeah, because I think there's like very little stuff is like purely boosted up on like merit. It's a lot of people make a lot of really good stuff, and it's like, what are the really good stuff that your friends are making?
Mhm.
Goes a long way. Or you get like me sometimes overly neurotic about it and go, oh, I don't want to try the things my friends like, because what if I don't like it? Even though I most certainly will.
Yeah.
But I get too in my head about like, Oh, my friend made a film. I'm like, oh, I don't want. What if I don't like? What if I don't like? What if it's not? But it's like, of course it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is like it's a thing I think about a lot because it's a thing I stress out about a lot of communities and games feels very impenetrable. Um,
Mhm.
uh, like if you're not already in them, I guess.
Mhm.
So there's like it's glad to help in any way to make like at least kind of like a thing that is an introduction, for people of like, oh, I'm in this thing too.
Yeah. I don't think I would have actually like released Winter Bunny or thought to do that actually if it were for Indiepocalypse.
Oh wow, that
Yeah, because yeah, I saw Indiepocalypse and I was like, hey, what if I did the thing? So I did the thing. Yeah,
no, very glad you did
yeah,
the thing.
yeah, I dug up the old project files that I hadn't touched in like a year. Um, and yeah, it was really embarrassing seeing my old work, honestly, but I patched it up like a lot, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, the your game is often like one of the reasons they go, oh yes, right, this is like why I have to do this, or why I feel compelled month and month over to like constantly do this,
Oh,
because I
yeah.
was I was like, oh yeah, this is a person who has no online presence, uh,
Hmm.
no like no like how does somebody find this game, but this game is also really good,
Oh, yeah.
and like the isolation of just like throwing these games out onto itch and I guess like hoping for the best,
Hmm.
seems like extremely difficult, unless you tag your game horror. You should have tagged your game
Oh, yeah.
horror. I
Yeah.
saw you have atmospheric, but if you put in horror, you get a bunch of people who post a playthrough of a no commentary playthrough, and the comment that says "nice,"
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
and you wonder, did they engage with my game at all, or did they just play it through for content?
Yeah.
Because it is like very much like a game to be engaged with. I'll admit in playing it that I broke it, sort of like three quarters to the end. So I played through it like
Hmm.
two or three times,
Yeah.
most of it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's these things that reward like. It's why I kind of hate the idea of people stressing about game length because like just like any piece of art, I think games really reward like multiple revisits to them.
Yeah. I actually had that in mind recently when I was making a new update for it. I added a new game plus that I just vagued about in the
Right.
game description because I was hoping like maybe somebody will be able to engage with it better if they play it twice.
Right. Does it add anything or is it just like called New Game Plus and it's like you play the game again?
Um, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a different ending. Don't know
Okay.
how much I want to spoil that.
Right. No need to do that. But I do like the idea
Mhm.
of making a New Game Plus that doesn't actually change anything other than sort of coerce someone to engage with the game twice with like the knowledge of having already played it.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think that was something I was trying to address when I was putting that retrospective in it. I think that is in the Indiepocalypse version.
Yes.
Um, I removed it because it felt a little preachy, and I just thought like, okay, I don't think anybody cares. Um, but yeah,
But it is like I I like to think of Vince Podcast as the beautiful home for people being overly preachy and a bit pretentious
yeah,
and a bit like uh, you know hey, listen, you're gonna sit here and kind of deal with the thing that I made, whatever that happens to mean, because there is like a lot of I remember I saw online just very very recently that someone the post of the idea of the early aughts hatred of the hipster has done like irreparable damage to our ability to engage with art.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And sort of like stuff that is like very sincere and very but also like can be like obtuse, and stuff that is like not easily explainable,
Oh yeah.
because it's perfect. There was a post I've mentioned on the show before. There was a post on a game that a game that got submitted. um I wish I remember the exact. I saved it so I could pull up the exact phrasing if I ever needed it. um, yeah, it's a video playthrough of a game, and it says didn't get the hidden meeting, but I guess I won.
Hmm.
And that is it feels like a way that a lot of people sometimes just kind of engage with art games of not getting it, but they beat the game.
Oh yeah.
They speed ran the emotional journey
Yeah,
and theoretically felt something, I suppose.
that's true.
But speaking of, nope, that's not a speaking of. That's just a statement.
Mhm.
uh, we're moving to our. I've got two important questions for you. Two standby Indiepocalypse questions as we approach the end of our segment here. Uh,
Mhm.
First up is, what is your favorite type of rock?
Um, hmm. I need to think about this one.
Okay.
Um, volcanic rock is pretty cool just
Yes.
because the way it forms is just like really intense, and I like
Yeah.
that.
Perfect. I will take it as an answer, so you don't need to overly think about. I mean, this stuff is kept on record. I do think about it constantly. I do consider this for future interaction with this person. Do I remove them if they say the wrong type of rock? Of course. But and follow up. This one is more optional in that it's fully optional.
Mhm.
Uh, do you have a favorite Toho character?
Um, I'll be honest, I've never interacted with the franchise, so I couldn't answer that question.
Yes, that's what makes it fully optional. uh, Although, of course, we have plenty of time to learn all about Toho in January when I host my Toho 101 class during the pledge drive. But,
Mhm.
but until the
Oh,
move, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just realized a better answer to the question.
Yes.
Um, I like Arctic monkeys. My adoptive parent got me into them recently, and that was
Okay.
really cool.
Yes, that is the an alternate version of that. That's part of the litmus test. So, what is your favorite type of rock? Is do people go to music or do people go to the mineral formations?
Mhm.
Speaking of rock, we're going to get to some genre of rock music in a second. Uh, but until then, Mopak, thank you for joining me here today.
Of
Glad
course. Thank you for having me.
glad to have you on the show. Glad to have you in the zine. We're going to go on break for about 3 minutes and 13 seconds. Until then, goodbye. Was, of course, Cry for Judas by the Mountain Goats. I just recently finished my every year, once, twice a year. I usually go like I do a whole front to back discography with them, just to reacquaint myself and go, yeah. Because sometimes you forget about the boombox era. It's a great era. Uh, we are here with our next guest. you may know from it was 55, I believe 55 because it's let me it was either 55 or 57.
Yes, 55 it was, yeah.
Yes, it was 55. I was right. Yes, nailed it. With nonverbal communication, it's Allison Gray. Hello, Allison. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. Now, you've had some time to prepare for this question, which is, hey, how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
Yes, I do remember.
Okay.
Um, because so okay, so I try not to do this too much, but
Yes.
I have a tendency to be like kind of obsessively checking on my games on itch and
Okay.
seeing like has anyone rated them? Has
Yeah,
anyone been playing them?
Allison,
Yeah.
I used to have back when TweetDeck existed. I used to have a column for that was search of Indiepocalypse, which,
Mm,
as it turns out, was mostly just useful for getting my own posts.
right, yeah. That's great. Um, yeah, and so what I was doing is I was checking on nonverbal communication,
Yeah.
and I saw that someone named Pizza Pranks had added it to a list that was called like to play or something.
Yes.
And I was really excited. I was like, oh, somebody's adding my game to the list. And so I clicked on the list name, and it said, if your game is on here, you should consider submitting to Indiepocalypse.
Yes.
And so that's how I found out what Indiepocalypse was. I thought it was really, really cool. And since I was kind of indirectly invited to contribute, to submit, I that kind of emboldened me. Otherwise, I probably would have not dared try to
Yeah.
submit.
And that is, Allison. I'm doing that actively right now. I am catching up on my, because so what I do is besides adding occasionally some games just on my own that I think look cool, I also follow everyone to see what anything they rate 5 stars or add to cool collections. I myself add because trusting the opinions of trusted people. And I was wondering because you are part of it's Neo Interactives, correct?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Which has a lot of overlap. I realize every time uh, uh, I feel like I am constantly finding like more like I click on someone's link and I go through the page like Neo Interactives and like the number of links that are colored as if I clicked them before grows every month.
Yeah. Yeah. So to be honest, I haven't really gotten involved much with the Neo Interactives events yet.
Yeah.
But I hang out in the Discord. They're all super cool people, and
Yeah.
obviously we're all in like general IF events as well, interactive fiction events.
But you don't have to. Yeah, I was kind of alluding to it in the first segment, but like you also don't need to. Not everything has to be like like intense community that you're a huge active part of.
Hmm.
Like that just seems like it would be exhausting for people to have to do. Of
Yeah, I really am hoping eventually to be doing more because they have so many cool little events like make a game about a certain theme or make a game that's like I think 500 words or less,
yeah,
right? Like stuff like that I really would love to participate in, but I already tend to overfill my plate so much
you're right.
that yeah.
Yeah, that's that is the great secret upside of hobbyist development is you don't have to worry about it being your job. So you can just like, oh, I'm too busy for this jam. I'm simply not going to do it.
Yes, yeah.
Not like, oh, I need to do this or else I don't get to eat food.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's definitely a useful skill to learn, to learn your limits, right? And to
Yeah,
to to pace yourself.
right. Yeah, because otherwise it's too easy. I've been around long enough to just see people just get burned, burn themselves out constantly.
Hmm.
Um, and just because they stress themselves like, oh, I need to get more eyes on my thing. My thing needs to be more popular. I need to get everyone, and then eventually you just like burn out before you ever achieve whatever you believe success is,
Yeah.
because it's hard to unless you know the right people. Um, but that I said we danced around it. We alluded to it. It's likely IF, but interactive fiction for people who don't know, which is at times a hotly contested definition. I guess depending on who you ask.
Yeah, very true. There's definitely a lot of debate within the community as to what counts as IF, what doesn't count as IF.
Yeah.
Because technically speaking, like every game is fiction and it's
Right.
interactive.
Right.
Basically every game. But yeah, generally when people say like interactive fiction, especially IF, it's in reference to a category of games that's very text focused.
Yeah.
So either games that are purely made out of text, or where text is really like a central element. So it could be like old school parser adventures where you type get lamp, go north, and so on. To obviously the modern interpretations of those, or just like choice based, like choose your own adventure, whatever, right?
Yeah.
All those kinds of games.
Speaking of text parsers,
Yes.
tell me about, if people are unfamiliar. Now this is what like multiple layers, considering it is like both like a. Tell me. We'll start at the very basic. Tell me what not. If someone was unfamiliar, what is nonverbal communication?
Right. So yeah, obviously I'd explain it a little differently
Yeah.
to people who are familiar with IF and people who are not. But so it's basically, I would describe it as a small experiment where I tried to I guess I gotta push the boundaries of IF, maybe. I don't know if that's the right way to put it.
Right.
Because text parser games usually you type in commands that are made up of a verb and then occasionally also one or multiple nouns, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking to myself, well, what would it look like to have a parser game with no verbs? Like, would that be possible? And like, yeah, how would someone even play it? And that's the line of thinking that got me to explore like different possibilities of, oops, sorry, that was my ringtone, different possibilities of themes and game mechanics, and eventually landed on nonverbal communication, which is basically a story about a wizard who has, through some kind of magical incident, lost the ability to perform actions directly. So basically, you've lost your verbs, right? There's no verbs.
Yeah.
The verbs are still there, they're just around you. And so by having the player type in nouns, the verbs that are near you act on those nouns by themselves, basically. So that was kind of the way that I found to circumvent the problem of, well, how do you tell the game what you want if there's no verbs, right?
Yes, right. It is like, it is a tricky thing to. It is kind of playing with the edges of IF, and like it does, like if you're unfamiliar with IF, you are in for a double treat of learning text parsers and then unlearning text parsers at the same time.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I've had a couple people actually say that they thought it was relatively beginner friendly just because
Oh yeah.
there's few like options for you to type in, and you don't have to worry about combining different words.
Right.
So I was actually surprised to hear that some people actually found it to be maybe a little more intuitive to people new to
Okay.
But yeah, I do really think that it's a lot more maybe comprehensible to folks who are familiar.
Right. I wonder, to the people who are like who think it's more beginner friendly, I wonder if it's kind of a thing where it's like, if you're more familiar with IF, like enough to mess yourself up,
Yeah, exactly. Like a lot of people who were familiar went into it like still trying to type in verbs, and occasionally it took them a while to kind of wrap their head around the concept.
Right.
Whereas people who went in without those expectations potentially had an easier time just taking the instructions at face value, right?
Right, because maybe they're trying to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Reverse engineer what the parser they're looking for is, and they're trying to kind of work backwards to find something where if you're unfamiliar, you're just kind of working forwards and like meeting the game at its language from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly.
So what got you into IF and developing IF, which I guess those are technically two different questions.
Yes, yeah, those are very good questions. Also, I would say in terms of like general game development, like
Yeah.
I've always been a gamer, so obviously that's always been something that I was interested in.
Yeah.
With IF in particular, it was actually I remember I was in high school and we were in the computer lab, and there were a whole lot of games that all like the flash games, whatever, were just like blocked, right, or inaccessible in
Yeah.
some way. But I remember stumbling upon this, I guess, site. I don't even remember where it was, but that had some text-based games.
Yeah.
And I remember like the one that really marked me was Galatea. And so that game still has like a really special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Which is a great game, like a character-focused game from like 25 years ago now, like a deep conversation system. But and so since then, like I was kind of fascinated by that it's like genre. So I always have trouble pronouncing this word.
Genre? Or
Yeah, because in French we say genre, but it's
yes.
totally different in English. Anyway, yeah, so I was fascinated by it, and I had like a big phase in high school of like really being into IF, and then I somewhat lost touch with it as life got in the way. I was playing less, and then last year I kind of came back to the community in full force, and I was like, okay, I want to play more games and I want to make my own. And then I entered IF Comp, and ever since then I've been a lot more involved in the community. And yeah, it's really been an awesome experience. I would say it really appeals to the kind of the literature loving side of me as well as the gamer.
Yeah.
It's kind of a really cool combination of of kind of two art forms basically, right?
Right. Because it is a lot of reading, and then sometimes if it is, a parser base, you're like really engaging with the text, like on this kind of foundational level of like, okay, well, I have to really think about all of these because where you are fully, as opposed to working in Twine, where often you're following link chains.
Yeah.
Like there are even different styles of like fiction. It's why language around games often feels extremely limited, because just like even though both of those arguably fall under IF, they like the way you even if they are just like, oh, from the outside they're both text. You're reading text and making choices throughout text. Like just whether you provide the text or whether the choices are provided to you creates like a much different way that you are engaging with the work.
Very true, very true. Yeah. There's definitely a huge difference between those different styles, and sometimes there's even been these kind of hybrids that even combine elements from the two. It's really interesting when you start getting into it. I do have a lot of love for choice-based games, and I've also made some myself.
Yeah.
I do really love how parsers create this kind of more sandboxy kind of feel, where like if a parser if an author really is careful in like designing the game, the player can try all kinds of crazy things and get these really interesting responses, right? And
Right.
Because it's text, you can potentially have like so many more branches than you could have in like a video game, because the budget for that would just balloon, right? Whereas just writing something happening doesn't require animation or
right.
models, whatever, right?
Words all cost the same.
Exactly, yeah.
It does. Fonts are very cheap. They don't. They come free on your computer. And anything, and also like anything can run them. This is technology from you talk about 20 years ago. This technology hasn't really changed in 20 years. It's still the same. it's still text. I mean, I'm sure Inform has gone through many updates, but
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
but the core of it is not like graphics ever improve. Although I'm sure
Yeah.
that
Yeah. So the. Oops. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, yeah, yeah. I was just good. I was agreeing with you and saying that, yeah, I definitely feel like there's kind of this level of like accessibility where they can run. I mean, sometimes there are issues with like between mobile or PC or whatever,
Right.
but at the core, yeah, they take almost nothing to run, and they're also accessible on another level of like players who have vision impairments,
Yeah.
can have like a screen reader, um, uh, process the text in a way that couldn't really be done with visuals. So there's all kinds of layers, but yeah, it's really cool to see this niche of like text games, still thriving basically,
Yes.
right? Like
Right.
among all like the really cool graphics of the other games, which obviously are also awesome, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But it is like interesting of like it's this section of games like completely untouched by technological change, and it makes
Yeah.
it and it makes sense that it wouldn't disappear. It'd be like, what if like it'd be silly if like, oh, we have novels now, we don't need poetry anymore, uh, or
Yeah. Mhm.
or short stories. No more short stories. We have novels now, which would like never happen really. Literature has not vanished because we have movies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really good way to frame it, I think.
And it's why it is weird that games are just all clumped together as this huge medium. Uh, when it really, I wonder if they ought to be like different, considered to be different mediums in some senses, or
Hmm.
the thing I think about a lot is like we don't call all recorded video the same thing. Not every piece of recorded audio and video is a movie. Like,
That's an interesting point. Yeah, like maybe. I mean, I know there is some language
yeah,
to refer to different kinds of like interactive media, but you're right that like a lot of the time that they tend to be lumped together. Yeah, you make some good points.
right. And then there's also the complication of language, in that we have money. As you can tell on the show, we have many of them. And it's like, oh, we solved it in English. And now how do you translate those ideas everywhere? And
Right. Yes.
it's one of those things that will take, if it ever happens, it will take forever. Perhaps not in my lifetime. Um, but speaking of lifetimes, something that's had a lot of lifetimes, whether we're talking, as we alluded to, either minerals or music, rock. Allie, what is your favorite type of rock?
That's so hard. I'm gonna say. I mean, okay, I love all of them, but I'm gonna say pet rocks.
Okay.
Because they're the only domesticated kind of rock, and
Yes, and
it's our responsibility to care for them.
I feel like they are a specific type of rock as well. You can't just, it's not any old rock with eyes on it. It comes from a certain genus, or not genus.
Exactly, yeah.
Genus, of course, is an animal, but you get the idea. Well, they are animals. They're rocks, right? They're pet rocks.
Exactly.
And following up the question with other animate, typically inanimate objects, do you have do you have a favorite Toho character?
Okay, I was so excited for this question because I love Toho.
Oh, perfect.
However, I don't think I can choose a favorite character. I love them all. Um, okay. Can I do like a top five?
Yes,
Would that
I'll
make
allow it.
sense? Oh, thank you. Okay, so keeping in mind, I love all the characters.
Yes.
In no particular order, I really like Aya because she's the protagonist of my favorite game, the one where you take pictures of the enemies instead of shooting them. Um, I love Unzan because he's the only male representation in a cast of like 500 female characters. Good for him. I don't know if there might actually have been new ones since then. Um, I love I love a lot of characters that I don't know how to pronounce their names, so I'm not
Yes.
gonna try. I'm gonna pick ones that are easy to pronounce. I love Ellie because she gave us Bad Apple, the one of the
The,
best
the,
songs ever.
the things that people know, the thing that people know from Toho, if they know nothing else.
Exactly. And oh my god, everyone should go check out like all the videos of all the places people have run Bad Apple. Like
Yeah.
people have made Bad Apple in like the system tray of Windows even. Anyway, um, and I love the vampire and the maid just because I thought they were really cool when I was a teen, and I guess they still have that place in my heart.
Yes. No.
Um,
They are. Sometimes vampires with crystal wings are just cool, you know. And
oh, that's actually not the vampire I meant.
right.
It's
Oh,
actually interesting. There's so many vampires
I was gonna
that
say
we
yes.
can't
That's my instinct for
obviously
vampires. Is that whole area? Are they all
But I love
vampires?
that you're including this
Or,
question on the show.
or
Sorry.
they're more like demons? Are like now I'm wondering if I am showing myself. No. Yes. Okay. I
I mean, that's a good question. Yeah, everyone is some variety of like a monster, right? Like a
yes. No, I was right.
pure
The
demon
Scarlets are
vampire.
vampires. I doubted myself for a moment.
No, it's okay. You've maintained your Toho cred for now.
Yes. Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, and
No.
it was great talking about IF on radio like this. Very
Yes.
cool.
Glad to have you on. This the whole point. This the beauty of the show is that I can talk to. There's all these. We interact with each other briefly over email, but I like to meet the people who make the games.
Yeah, it's really cool to speak. Well, quote unquote face to face.
Yes, yes. It's face to face as one needs to be. We didn't even have these a couple hundred years ago. This kind of voice to voice interaction is very new in the scope of humanity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we're going to go on break, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Allison, thank you for joining me here today. Goodbye for now. And hello, welcome back to Indiepocalypse Radio. That was Bomb the Music Industry with stuff that I like, where they sing about stuff that they like. We are back here with our third and final guest of the show, the one that is from issue 57 of Indiepocalypse Radio with Snake Bite. It is Tulu. Tulu, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. And now you've had plenty of time to prepare for the question. And the question is, hey, how did you hear about Indiepocalypse?
That's true, but oh my god, the answer will be I don't remember.
Okay, yes.
It was probably on Twitter, the bad website.
Yes.
And
It's now officially X. When I type in TW, it no longer comes up.
Oh, it still works on my computer, so I can still I can still pretend it's Twitter, and I actually think it was a year or two ago. I take note of Indiepocalypse because I was for my blog. I was researching web game and websites that talked about game. So it might be at the time where I heard about Indiepocalypse and how great it was if I could be part of it.
Yeah, the secret to being a part of it is just submitting, or basically
Yes.
just asking. Well, for most people, that is like the first step is just to submit, and because chances are, like, I feel like a lot of there are so many people making like so many just like super like fascinating games,
Yes.
As someone who's been in it for well over a decade, of like digging around and downloading games off of people's websites and stuff, well before even itch was around. Like, I feel like the energy has not vanished in the slightest. If anything, the increasing accessibility of engines has only like increased the number of people making very exciting and cool stuff.
Oh, yes, definitely. I've seen more and more people that are not especially programmer or that don't know that much about coding, that are able to make game like with things like BT or Twine, and
Yes.
the things that's amazing.
Yeah. There's and it's interesting to see them keep coming up. Like what's it called? Decker feels like it's a new previous guest of the show, creator of Decker has been on. Like I've seen a lot of Decker games pop up recently too. Uh, as there's like
Um,
so
I'm sorry.
sorry, what was that?
So sorry, I said nothing.
Oh, it's like sort of based on old Apple HyperCard stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I saw some of them. I think I heard of it. Um, I I've seen the game iOS was made with it. Maybe
Yes, yes,
it looked
yes.
like. Okay, now I see. Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you've probably seen a lot of the games made with it. Um, but yeah, that is like if you see a lot of games that use a lot of like Windows and UI within a very one-bit style.
Yes, in black and white. I
Yes,
see. I see.
chances are you're seeing something built in Decker, which is it is interesting to see people because there is. I'm very fascinated with the idea of like kind of local community sort of people playing off of each other. That you don't get the same way in games, but you get it when different engines come out or different things come out, and everyone starts to experiment with it.
Yes, yes, that's very true. I use a lot of BT. I've
Yes.
created a few games with BT, and I think it's a very great engine. And I won't say I'm not very good because I'm quite proud of the game I made with it. But I've seen what people did with the engine that just blow my mind, and I think that's really amazing. And the people that make mods for BTs and improve on the original engine. So there's the whole ecosystem of new engine based off of this first engine. Time
Yeah.
I think I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is new, but it's evocative of uh, of older engines. Like sometimes, like when I describe to people like what ZZT is. Even though that's a precursor by 40 years or whatever, I often relate it to Bitsy as a simple like four directional sort of engine.
Oh yes, I really never thought about it. I don't really play ZZT game, but I know about them, and that's right. That's a good comparison of an engine that is very easy to use and very easy to share game with. It's kind of the same, yes.
Yeah, there are so many. I think something that kind of needs to be let go of is the idea that you need to play every game. Uh, like I think there's a lot of benefit to being like,
Have
yeah,
to play a heavy game.
right to
Sorry, I think. Uh, Hello, I think we were cut.
sorry,
You
what
hear
was?
me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think my connection is a bit unstable.
Okay, no,
I'm
that's all
sorry.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was. What was I saying? There was. Yeah, to not have to play everything, which I think is a curse that games have had for like quite a while. Of the idea of needing to, especially for how long they are, needing to play
Yes.
everything.
Yes. Yes. That's very true. especially if you want to keep up with the release for on a website like itch. There are like hundreds of game every day.
Yes, no, I during the show, I probably added another 50 or 100 or not or probably close to 50, 20, 50-ish to my to playlist, which is itself 9,000 games long, and it is like too much. That is already itself too many games for a single person to ever play, or it would take a very long time to do it. And while you are catching up, people are still making new games.
Yes, this is this is insane. The sheer amount of creativity people
Yeah.
are doing. I try to keep up with the release of web games. I try to follow like on itch or Newgrounds. In 2024, I played 700 game, I
Yes.
think,
Right.
I'm nowhere close to being exhaustive. I'm still trying to keep up, and it's never ending.
Yeah, because part of that is, of course, I am familiar, but if people, you also run the Museum of Screens.
Yes. Uh, it's a blog. Okay, it's a Twitter account at first. It's now it's a blog and a whole thing, where I try to talk about web game from the past and the present.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in games that could be playable directly on your web browser, you can check out the Museum of Screen.
Yeah, and definitely, especially you go back like a decade to Flash. There's a huge number of games that a lot of which are still like fortunately like playable, preserved through emulation.
Yes. Yes, that's right. There are so many websites that closed down over the years. So many games that were not archived. There are some great projects of preservation, like Flashpoint, the Flashpoint archive, that try to compile every Flash game, Flash animation, and so many more things. And but this is nowhere near close, and surely we already lost hundred of Flash game.
Yeah.
And yeah, that this is crazy because sometimes it's not even old game like games that were released 10 years ago. Some of them are already unplayable in any form. He will losing so many games very fast. It's like a whole subculture the we are trying to preserve, but it's extremely difficult.
Yeah. There's it. And it is like right. There's a lot of like history, and it does a weird thing of erasing history of a lot of if you go through just your um, just like the Museum of Screens thing, you see a lot of, you recognize a lot of names in there as people who like are still making games, but this kind of their Flash era sort of gets in a lot of cases just kind of gets erased because the stuff got erased.
Yes, yes, exactly. This is very unfortunate, but some very great games that were beloved back in the days are already lost. That's
Yeah.
why we must support like the Internet Archive or other preservation projects. They are doing a very valuable work, and
Yeah.
yeah, we should encourage and support them financially or otherwise.
Right. 'Cause I think it's very much like a multi process thing. Like Internet Archives and a lot of these things keep it all exist, and then Museum of Screens and site and efforts like that also help people
Yes.
recontextualize things and like
Y-
and
Yeah, exactly.
because
Um,
I often think of the idea of like is something uh, preserved if nobody talks about it, you know.
Yes, that's very true. In fact, when I first decided to make the Museum of Screen, it's because there were so many Flash games that were passed around in the early 2000s, but with sometimes the without the knowledge of the original creators. So
Right.
sometimes the games were downloaded from one website and reposted on another, and the context was lost very fast. And I wanted to make something that uh, some sort of catalog of those old Flash game you probably remember but don't really know where it came from, and present them like they were in the museum. So that was that game. It was released in that year by these people, and that was very important to me. In fact, to find the original author of some game I played when I was a kid, but I didn't know where it came from.
You're right. Yeah, and speaking of games, you've made a game of your own. Is part of why you're here. If people are
Yes.
unfamiliar, what is Snakebite?
Snakebite is exactly what it sounds. It's a snake game made entirely in 80 art, and it's a blend between a snake game and Metroidvania. I don't really know how to say it best. It's you play like a regular snake, like the one game you used to play on your phone,
Yeah,
but instead of just staying in the same room, you have to explore a whole environment, find new path, open new door, like an adventure game.
yeah. There, it is. It is. Like we talked about, like I mentioned on the show earlier. It's sometimes game. Just how to play these games. These games explain themselves better through play.
Yeah, so that's right. The Snakebite, actually, it's technically the sequel to my previous game. I had already made a snake game like this in the past, and like people enjoyed it, so I decided to make like some sort of I don't want to say definitive version, but I really improved version with the better levels, more content,
right.
um, to iterate on my original idea.
Yeah, there is. Uh, very often I think the language of remastering and alphas and betas and all that stuff kind of like poisoned the way we talk about games. Um, when really you just you could re-explore an idea again. Uh,
Yes, exactly. The whole idea of the game was to make a snake game that you look like you were exploring through the code of a computer. So there was it was a big continuous level with many paths and some warp room to bonus level. And I remember a friend of mine played it and say he enjoyed the bonus level way more than the main game. So I decided to make a game that was basically just warping to new location and exploring new programs and stuff like that.
yeah, there it is. It is something is a treat to uncover, um, and explore and kind of like parse through. And so, what got you, since you're asking, into game development?
Um, I I don't really remember
Right.
because I'm sorry to answer this, but
No, no, that,
as far as I can remember, I always wanted to make games. I went into computer science studies. I tried to go to a game to the gaming a game design school, but I couldn't. So basically, in my 20s, I said, screw it, I'm gonna do it on my own. I'm gonna make the game I want, the way I want. So I tried to make a working game with the with the computer knowledge I had at the time, and I'm happy to see that it worked out.
yeah, yeah, there, right. It's just, uh, it feel the thing I increasingly have been realizing is like games are just kind of they just sort of exist, and there is more of like, well, how did you get into anything? It's just like I just did it, it's something I do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. This is like any form of creation. Like, why do you make a drawing? Why do you write something? Because I want to.
Right.
Um, and sometimes I wish I do more with my game. Sometimes I want to make creation with I don't want to say a higher purpose, but something. I want to say something with my game, but usually what the game says is about me, where I was in life, what kind of knowledge I had to make the game. My game are very janky and they kind of all together with glue and duct tape.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
I think that's why I express with my game is they are like a small experiment I try to make, and I'm happy that it is an experience that work and like I can share with other.
yeah, yeah. There is like I think there's too much. It's too easy to get kind of caught up on making the good game. It just needs to work. It doesn't need to. The code doesn't need to look good. It just needs
Yes.
to. It just needs
Um.
to work.
Yes, my code looks horrible. I really don't want people to see my
Oh,
code.
but like here's the thing: they don't see it. They never do. They just see the
Yes,
game.
yeah, exactly, and my game are really not perfect, as they are far from perfect. But I think I prefer where games are a little janky,
Yeah,
like solo developer who make small experiment or weird experience when you can see it was made by someone. Um, the I want to say the error in a game is what makes them humans.
yeah,
You can see a human did that. It speaks to me more than a very polished experience.
yeah, yeah. There is like because even if ideas sometimes if ideas don't work, you get the feeling that like somebody still had an idea that some like that they had an idea even if the idea didn't work they had an idea.
Yes, yes, exactly. That's why I love playing small releases on each, because you can see someone with maybe not very good with coding, but who had an idea and decided to put it together and put it into the world, and I think
Yeah,
that that's great.
yeah, yeah. There is so much like out there, as you're just as equally deep into it, I imagine, as I am. There is a lot out there, and there has always been a lot out there. uh there
Yeah, exactly.
and like it's kind of like I feel like there is a bit of kind of like I don't like the framing of it necessarily as retro culture, game culture, but it is uh, um, for whatever issues I have sometimes with the presentation of it. A lot of it feels like more people are being interested in like older games, you know.
Yes.
Which can only kind of like once the term retro dies, I will be happy. As someone who doesn't listen to retro music, you know, or watch retro movies, it's just like it's such a weird framing that exists within games that feels like it has to have a limited lifespan on it.
Yeah. Yes, this is true. I feel like, or maybe it will continue, and the game I released today in 20 years, it will be called Retro, even though it was already looking like out of this time
Right.
at moment of release.
A retro game. But that all. So speaking of retro stuff, I have two questions for you. First question, of course. What's your favorite type of rock?
Okay, I had time to think about it.
Yes.
I will say Quark. It's an inside joke with my friend who run tabletop RPG. I love quartz, and my character has quartz with a ring with a quartz on it. And also, my favorite type of rock is gorillas, if you consider this is rock or not.
Okay. And follow up, not follow up. Secondary question: do you have a favorite Toho character?
I don't play Toho, so I will say the one in Bad Apple.
Okay, there's a lot of them in that. Oh.
Oh no, the first one I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry.
No, too many people apologize for not knowing Tohos. It's a perfectly acceptable way to live your life, you know.
I will get into it someday, maybe.
But until then, Tula, thanks for joining me here today. We're gonna go on our final break of the show. Where's my little? There's Fubar hiding, and we'll be back in like 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Goodbye for now.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a surprise guest. Oh,
Yes.
by the way, they're not actually parrots. They're
The
doves.
fifth guest.
Yes, we're talking. Welcome back to the show. We're talking about our surprise bird guest, who you haven't heard yet, but could make an appearance at any point. You never know. That was Pavement's Gold Sounds. I've been in a real freaking Pavement mood lately. I don't know why. I'm like, what if I just listen to Pavement all the time? As someone who it's one of those things of growing up, approximately in the 90s, but in 1994, of course, when that was actually released, though 2004 is re-released and all. But anyway, when I was a child, I was not listening to Pavement. 5 to 6, 7-year-olds usually not real into what if I got into the real grungy slacker rock, Those would be a real cool 6-year-old, but was not me. I was not a cool 6-year-old. But we are back, but the whole crew is here. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
How many of you were cool 6-year-olds?
Not me.
I was very uncool.
Yeah. No one with full knowledge of indie rock. I know Elephant 6. That's how old I am. Oh no. I guess, but it's the weird thing because the closer we get to modern day, the more possible it is that you could be that person, you know. Like, you just turn on Spotify, you just like what you like. You know, precisely, exactly. You don't have
Sorry.
you don't have to like find college radio stations or whatever. It just all exists in the same big giant bucket. But it can be a cool bucket. But anyway.
Yeah.
But also, it's the context of like what would even be cool nowadays? It's a thing that like can such a thing exist as the mainstream fractures? I guess how do you become the alternative to the mainstream? You have to like find your specific mainstream and become an alternative to that. But anyhow, so I have a very important question, a crucial question that I have for the panel here. That is my secret third Indiepocalypse question, which is for the whole panel. What is your relationship with that funny little guy? He runs around. He wears red and blue. We call him Mario. How do you feel about him?
Interesting. Seems like a cool guy.
Perfect. Yeah.
Seem friendly.
Yes. He's always playing like tennis or whatever, just hanging out.
Oh, he's very into sport. That's for sure.
It's funny because he plays sports a lot, but his body never changes. He's like perpetually in the same form. But he's beautiful the way he is, of course.
Yes, no, it's the form that Hollywood took from us of that kind of everyman's sort of in shape sort of look, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yes. But he's in good shape in his own movie. I feel like, or maybe even in the movie from the 90s, 94.
Oh my god, that movie!
I am very excited to see people come back to the light of Super Mario Brothers, like 95 or 98 or whatever it was.
This movie is insane. I saw it when I was 12, I think.
Yeah.
And to this day, I'm not sure if some things that happen in the movie are real or if that's things I dreamed. That was so weird.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like of an era of kind of production design that you don't see as much anymore. Where there is like a ton of sets and like kind of very practical. Like in a lot of ways, that Double Dragon movie looks very similar, with its kind of weird post-apocalypse, but like.
Oh yes.
With lots of sets. Yeah.
It's very funny because if you think about it, in the 90s there was obviously a movie with physical sets and all, but it was seen as kind of lame. But today, because most movies are done on a green screen, we come back to those old bad quote-unquote movie and see that because they had physical sets, they looked so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a charm to like that person is in that place, that they're touching something, and then, or you can see that kind of nondescript American forest field location that exists in a lot of movies.
Yes.
Or it could be Canadian. I don't know when they started moving up there for a lot of productions. But there is that sort of... and you know, it's kind of like when we mentioned with the games, it's sort of the imperfections are charming.
Oh yes,
It's true.
exactly.
There's
It
I think that's part of what is really drawn people towards, it gets broadly described as, PS1, but sort of like lower poly, low fi sort of work. Besides the fact that obviously also an individual can make stuff like that, and not take 20 years to make it.
yes.
But it is also, very like it can still be representative, of we can see faces in anything, all it requires is a couple circles and a line somewhere, and we go, oh look, it's a face.
Yes, that's very true. We can, with the lower graphical fidelity, we can project ourselves a little better, use our imagination.
Yes,
That's
yes.
true. Yeah.
And we can like still we can still, and obviously we can still see everything. Like it's not like, oh, I don't. It's too low graphics. I don't. It doesn't look like a person anymore. Like, oh yeah, it still does look like a person in the same way that cartoons look like people still. We're not like, what are these
Yeah.
weird aliens?
And with text-based games, you can fully use your imagination.
Yes. Or if you think of the days before they start doing woodcuts, and like we just had to imagine what people look like. We just had to put Gilgamesh in our brain and think, huh, what does that fellow look like? What does Gilgamesh look like? I've never read it.
Me neither, I admit.
Yeah.
Me neither.
What does he look like? He looks like he's got a beard. He's like holding a line. He's got a nice beard going on. Or he's like a hot anime guy. But it looks more like he's got a beard and he's holding onto a lion.
There's probably an anime about him.
I think this is from Fate, if I can ballpark it correctly.
Yeah, I'm seeing it here too. Wow.
Yes, I'm assuming that is from the Fate series. Because they're all like those types of things, right? They're all like whatever, King Arthur and the like. That is one of my blind spots with games and culture and all that. Although I think some of them are in they interact with Melty Blood, or is that the same company? I don't know. Not a clue. Closing this thing. No need to learn about Gilgamesh anymore. Banished away anime Gilgamesh. But now I'm going to do my last sort of... Where's the correct window? There it is. Okay. No, question big. I'm banishing all these things, checking. If you're here to do chatters, I usually do not check the chat very often because I am usually just like paying attention to the people I'm talking to. So I am doing a final scroll through of did I miss anything in here? And I do not. Yes, the music rocks. And yeah, games are cool. True, games are cool. Games are cool. I do like games. That said, I'm going to start wrapping up this show as we kind of hit our hour and a half mark, which leads quickly into 2 hours, which is the ideal stopping time I've decided upon. So as we begin to wrap, does anyone have any last minute sort of questions or statements or anything they need to get out before I start the full wrap up?
Could I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
Shout out to Aristren from the Indiepocalypse server. They're an amazing writer.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, who is that?
Aristren.
Okay. Yes, yes. Yes, infinite shout outs to people. This is shouting out to other people unheard of on a radio show. But yeah. Yeah.
If I may, I would like to shout out a project of a friend of mine who's doing. You can check out on Twitter or Blue Sky the Pokemon TCG New Deck Plus. It's a mod made by one of my friends of the old Game Boy Pokemon trading card game with new art, new balance, and a lot of cool stuff. And I think it's pretty cool, so you should check it.
Yes. Perfect. Any
Nice. There's. Sorry. I got stuck for a moment because of my stutter.
Yes.
There's so much I feel that still could be said.
Yes, yes.
So I just like to take the opportunity to thank everyone who has been interested in the apocalypse, who's been listening to us, or supporting the games, and obviously all of the other authors who are really awesome. And I want to invite everyone who is interested in text-based or text-focused games to come and visit us in the IF community. There's a whole forum, intfiction.com, .org, sorry, I think it is.
Yeah.
Where where there's just a bunch of talk about games. There's all kinds of events. So if you'd like to see more texts like that, feel free to come visit us.
Yes, yes, and now we're perfect. I'm going to hit the full wrap up. So wait, I know I closed my thing that I used to wrap up, or because it has all of your links in it.
Oh no!
I reopened it. Crisis averted. So Tulu, if people are looking for your work, where can they find it?
They can check out my personal website, tulutumu.com. It's you write it like you like it said.
Yes, but with use if you're coming from my American English background.
You can check me out, yes, with the itch.io link in chat.
That's the one I had handy.
Tulu,
I got the other one.
Okay, thank you. toulou.itch.io, and you can find my game, my blog, all my thing, and unfortunately my social media, because I post a lot.
All right, Allison, where can people find your stuff if they're looking to find it?
So mostly on itch. If you don't have the link handy, I have it here.
I do. I got it.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So I could try to pronounce it, but I don't know if people would know how it's spelled. It's like Zilphobas-Morio. Not itch.io.
Yeah,
and on there's all the links to the Infiction forum and to my IFDB.
Yes.
As well, so that's kind of where I'm hanging out mostly.
Yeah, the only tricky thing I would say Zophos is a PH, but I feel like you get through the context of something like Zophos Morio feels like it would have a PH. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it has kind of that Greek vibe. I think it's from.
It's got that sort of root word vibe to it, and a lot of those have PHs in them. Momopoke, where could people find your work if you're looking to find it?
I tried to use my itch.io page, momopoke.itch.io, as just like my main thing where I link to everything else. Also, I post a lot on my Instagram on @_hauntingpresence.
Perfect. Yes, having like a hub, even if it is like just your itch page, it's good to have like a nice little hub that people can go to find everything else through. And as people in the chat, yes, do open all these up. Do check out all these people. They're all cool people making cool stuff. And And right, yes, the thing I do, Indiepocalypse. If you hear, you're like, what is this thing? Indiepocalypse, of course, monthly anthology. You can get it at indiepocalypse.com. Is my favorite place to get it because I get money immediately. Or pizzapranks.itch.io. And if you buy it, the people here get money every so often. I would say, get that $5 to $6 a couple times a year, maybe. You're all new, so you don't have the excitement of going. If 6 months later, you're going, oh, I got $5.83 from Andrew. Somebody. I can now get a slice of pizza, or something else. If you'd like to join, of course, indiepocalypse.com/submit is always open for all sorts of games and game adjacent things that reasonably fit within the argument of what could be considered a game, knowing that I use the term game very loosely. There's, of course, Patreon, of course, which is /Patreon. You can get the standard subscription, or if you want to get just the commission games for $5 a month, you can do that there as well. I think there's a lot. There's a lot of URLs I also have. You can get things physically in these cool little cassette tape formats that I like. That's /tape or pizzapranks.com/tape market. I think you can kind of, once you get on my website, it's all there. I always want people to go to the website. That all said, I think that's everything. I think that's all of my links. I think that's covered. I don't need to come up anymore. Find one, find them all. So, Smoke, Allison, Tolu, thank you all for joining me here today. Glad to have you all on the show. Love doing this show every week. As someone who does not like text interaction, who will see something and hold on to it to tell my friends that I saw a license plate that said IPA man, and will hold on to that idea for 2 weeks until I see them in person, rather than just posting in the Discord. I am glad to have people to do this show and talk to you all. I'm glad to have you in the zine and making games in general,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for all your work.
Well, thank you all for all your work. I also think about, especially because this was a real all bangers submission last month of like wow, I could make 2 issues out of this. I often think that even if literally nobody else paid attention to it or nobody else ever bought Indiepocalypse, it would still be a thing that I would do because I would just be kind of a weird reverse Patreon where people just send me the coolest shit every month. And I'm glad to have it be sent to me. That all said, folks, we're leaving. We're shutting down the show. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Goodbye.
Oh, wait, you know what? Actually, before we shut down the show, I realized, since I'm posting links, those other people you shout out, do we have links for those people handy? I am stepping back. I realize I ought to do that as well.
Yes, 1 second.
I can get the IF comp one pretty easily, I think. Or IF, whatever that site is. Because I can get that through your hub.
I'm posting, yes, the project of my friend.
Perfect. Oh, right. You're in the chat. You're doing it for me. Yes.
Yes.
You got me covered.
I'm here.
Yes, of course you got it covered. Let me just nail. Thank you both for doing that. And there's my infection. All right, now we're actually leaving. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Wait, as soon as I find I was like, where's OBS? Oh, it's still open.